Welcome to Atlanta, Georgia.
Manood para sumaya.
Makinig para matuto. Mag-observe para ma-encourage.
Yan ang mga salitang galing kay Eric Fernandez!
Panahon na bang mabalik sa tamang kultura. Mamulat ang mga nabubulag mula na sa mga maling sistema. Panahon na upang lahat tayo'y magkaisa. Yan ang mga salitang galing sa bibig ni Eric Fernandez. Maka-Diyos at makabayan, Eric Fernandez.
Okay, let's go. Shout out muna kay Kuya Gio, we're missing you. The entire family, the entire crew is here. Except for you. So, yun. Okay. Oh, get inside the car. This is our Airbnb accommodation from Atlanta, Georgia. Hindi kami nag-room tour dahil nagmamadali na kami para sa susunod naming pupuntahan. Oh, what's happening? Get inside. Oh my God. Hannah and Gabby at the back. Great. Kami ay papunta sa isang napaka espesyal na lugar sa aking puso. Pero bago ko sabihin kung saan yon, ipapaliwanag ko muna sa inyo kung bakit kami ay nasa Atlanta. Ang Atlanta, Georgia ay muling pinatanyag ng series sa Netflix na ang title ay Walking Dead. Kung natatandaan nyo, si Rick, si Daryl at si Carl, sila ang mga karakter sa Walking Dead. Ito ay lugar kung saan ito naganap ay ang Atlanta, Georgia. At ang kanilang goal ay pumunta sa Washington DC. Kami naman pabaliktad, galing kami ng Washington DC at ngayon ay nandito na sa Atlanta, Georgia. Bukod sa Walking Dead, ano ba ang mga lugar na sikat ang Atlanta? Trisha, alam mo ba na anak dito pinanganak, dito na imbento ang Coca-Cola. So hopefully pupunta tayo sa Coca-Cola Museum. Hindi lang yon, ano pa ang sikat ang Atlanta at tanyag ito. Ayan, alam mo ba na ang automobile industry ng Amerika ay dito yumabong o dumami kasi maraming kotse sa Amerika ang dito nagkaroon ng planta para gawin at ikalat sa buong mundo. Hindi lang yon. Mo, alam mo ba na dito sa lugar na ito, isang pastor ang siya ay nabibilang sa minority. Pero muntik na siya na maging kauna-unahang Black American President. Walang iba kundi si Martin Luther King Jr. Dito siya pinanganak. Siya ay isang pastor na naging social activist at pupunta rin tayo doon sa kanyang ano ba yun? Church? Museum? Ano ba yung
Museum.
yung bahay niya. Oh, libre ba doon mo?
Yeah.
Pati pagkain?
Sa National Park.
National Park na. So doon tayo pupunta. Ano pa ang tanyag ito? Yung pupuntahan natin ngayon. At espesyal ito sa aking puso dahil for the first time I will be hearing live na mag-preach at magturo at ma-experience ko kung paano lumago at naging influential sa lugar na ito ang simbahan ng North Point Community na pinangungunahan ni Pastor Andy Standy. So, yun, samahan nyo kami. Linggo ngayon dito, magcha-church kami sa North Point Community Church. At we'll pray, we'll worship God at magpapasalamat tayo ngayong araw na to. So, Tart, excited ka ba?
Of course!
Saan ka dun sa excited sa lugar na mga sinabi ko? Sa church. Okay, maraming salamat. Subaybayan nyo kami sa aming pamamasyal sa Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, let's tell them the story. We are in a bus stop from North Point Community Church. On our way here, we were driving a rental. But there has been a bit of a challenge, if you can call that bit of a challenge. Our car broke down in the middle of it's the 75
McDonald
and 85
Parkway.
highway. So it broke down. Thank God we're alive, we're safe.
Yeah.
And from there we called emergency services and proceeded to attend church. Now without a car, we will figure this out. So God is good. We are all safe. What can you say?
Yeah.
What can you say, Gabby?
God is good.
God is good.
Were you scared?
No, because
Okay.
I was sleeping.
Oh, you were sleeping. How about you, Anna?
Yeah, God is good.
Were you scared for a moment?
No,
Why?
because, we're protected.
How about you, Trish?
I was worried we wouldn't make it in time for the service.
Oh yeah, that was scary.
How about you, Mom?
Me, I know that I have a good leader here. And we're in good hands. And he knows exactly what to do. So we're not panicky.
I am. Good.
That's great.
Okay.
How about Momo? Momo.
Alright, so we're still pushing with our schedules
Yeah.
today.
Coca-Cola.
Welcome to all of our Atlanta area campuses and our strategic partners around the country, and those of you joining us around the world. It's honored to be synced up with you today. And I am so thrilled to be back here at North Point. It's my first time since we moved back to Atlanta, being in this room, being in this building on a Sunday morning. And I can't, it's too early in the message to get emotional, but this place means a lot to us. My kids, met my wife here. My kids came to faith in this church. I learned to lead and teach God's word in this church. I'm just so grateful. And some of us are in the middle of situations where things don't seem to be going well, or they're at least not headed in the right direction. Or you will face a situation or a circumstance where things are not going well and you're in need of a turnaround. Now, maybe it's in leadership, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's in marriage, maybe in your finances or your personal life. And maybe it's like really in disarray, it's in really bad shape, or maybe it's just headed that direction. And you can see like, if you don't turn things around, where it's gonna end up. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. He says this, he says, go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it because its wickedness has come up before me. This is God speaking. So, but Jonah instead, he ran away from the Lord. And he didn't go directly there. He actually went down to Joppa where he found a ship. And I want you to notice this. This wasn't like, hey, I casually headed in the wrong direction. This isn't like, oh, I missed my turn or I misunderstood. Like he went down to Joppa where he found a ship. He had to go find a ship that was bound for Tarshish, and paying the fare, he made some sacrifice. He went aboard and he sailed to Tarshish to flee from the Lord. So this is a very deliberate decision. In fact, I want to show you how deliberate. Look at this. This is a map of the Middle East. This is the Mediterranean Sea. You're starting to get your bearings. This is Italy, the boot. Here's Spain. Here's Israel. Greece is over in here. So here's Israel. And the reason he says he went down to Joppa is because Joppa's down here in the southern part of Israel. Now, I want you to see the difference. If he was gonna go from there to Nineveh, he would have gone about 50 miles northeast. Or excuse me, 500 miles northeast. But instead of going to Nineveh, he went 2,500 miles west to Tarshish. Like he's not even going remotely in the same, it's not even like, hey, he'll think I'm going in the right direction. It's like God was telling him to go to Nineveh, and Nineveh was this great city that was the center of the Assyrian Empire, who ruled the known world at that point. And one of the most vicious kings of all time was reigning the Assyrian Empire at this time, and the Assyrians terrorized the Israelites. If I have the opportunity to go from Joppa to the northern mountains of Iraq or the coast of Spain, what are you picking? Like, I'm going to the coast of Spain. So like, I'm just thinking like, just in practical terms, like this is what's going on. All of this is happening. So this begins though, a series of events. This going down to Joppa. When he went down to Joppa, this begins a series of events that are actually a downward spiral. He went down to Joppa where he found a ship moored for that port, and after paying his fare, he went aboard. This Hebrew word, aboard, literally it means to go down into. So there's a series of things that are happening here. Jonah goes down to Joppa, and then he goes down aboard this ship. This is this downward direction of what's happening, and these are things that we don't get in the story normally. But if you're paying attention, like we start to understand, there's this downward spiral, this downward repetition that's starting, and then we find out he gets on this ship, and the Lord sent a great wind. Most of us know this part of the story on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. And again, in the original language, this was like personified, like the ship has a choice or it has a personality. And it's like, hey, if you keep sailing me in this direction, great, I'm just gonna explode and everybody's gonna go everywhere and you're all gonna drown. And so that the ship is sort of threatening the sailors. And all the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God. They didn't worship Yahweh, the God of Israel. They cried out to their own God. The Israelites would have considered them pagans. And they threw the cargo into the sea, and they lightened the ship. So they crying out to their different gods. And here's the irony. They're looking up towards God. You know, Jonah's going down to Joppa, and he goes down into the ship, and they're looking up to God. They're looking up to their gods, and they're trying to throw things overboard to keep the ship up and afloat. They're acting in the opposite direction in terms of imagery as is Jonah. And then we see that Jonah continues to go in his direction though. Even though they're doing that, Jonah had gone below deck. He went down below deck where he laid down and he fell into a deep sleep. So Jonah goes down below deck. He's continuing his downward movement. He goes down below deck and then he lays down and he goes into a deep sleep. So there's this downward movement, and some of you are going, well, why is it downward? It's like, that's what happens, right? That's how we talk about when things aren't going well. You know, you're down on your luck, or you got knocked down, or you fell, or, some of you got to a place where you would say you hit rock bottom. Like, that's when things aren't going well. They're not looking up. You're not on top of your game. Like, it's using a very normal tactic to say, hey, this is obviously not going well, and things are going worse and worse and worse and worse for Jonah. So what's going on here in our terms? You've seen this before. In fact, this is a pattern of something we see all the time, this downward spiral. What's happening? What do these things mean? He goes down to Joppa instead of going to Nineveh, which is actually sort of in the opposite direction. His first step is in the opposite direction of Nineveh. And he decides to defy what God told him to do. He's defying. He's not doing what he ought to do, what he was supposed to do. He's neglecting his responsibility. I mean, he's a prophet. His job is to go and speak on behalf of God, and he's neglecting what he's supposed to be doing. And instead, he opts to go his own way and to try something different. And he's gonna go a different direction. And the direction he's gonna go is different than the way he ought to be going. And then he goes down below deck, and this is sort of a metaphor for going into hiding. He realizes he's not going the direction he's supposed to be, and he's behaving in a way he ought not to be. And so he's gonna try to hide that, and he's gonna try to cover that up, and he's gonna try to escape the fallout of what's happening. And he's gonna hold on to his secret. You gotta remember, at this point, Jonah's the only one who knows why they're in the middle of the storm. And it's because of what he's been doing. It's because he defied what he's supposed to be doing. And he tried to do things, which I know none of you do this, but like he decided, I know what God wants me to do, but I think I can do it this way. It's better for me to do this way. I know what's better for my life and for my people. And so he tries something other than what he ought to do. And then in his embarrassment and shame, he's hiding. And then he lays down, and this isn't because he's tired. I mean, it may seem like it's because he's tired, but this is a metaphor for taking cover. He's trying to take cover, and he's just trying to survive the chaos of what's happening around him. And then finally, he closes his eyes, and he goes into a deep sleep. And this is sort of a metaphor for being in denial and denying what's really going on in the circumstances. And this is where you can see this. This is this downward spiral of a series of steps and a pattern of behavior that leads us into a situation where we need a turnaround. And this pattern, or versions of this pattern and these behaviors are things that plague relationships and marriages and organizations and teams and careers and finances. It plagues our mental and emotional health. You've seen this before. And you've seen this pattern in a friend or a spouse or a partner, a coworker, an employee, maybe in your boss or your kids or your parents. Some of us have acted this pattern out in our own lives where we decided, I'm not gonna do, I got a better idea. I'm not gonna do what I want, what I ought to do. I'm gonna do what I wanna do. And I'm gonna try something out of my own strength and out of my own intuition. And then when it doesn't go well, it's like we try to hide it or we try to cover it up. And then we're just trying to survive the fallout or the consequences of it. And then we got stuck into a situation we don't know how to get out of it. And so we're trying to deny it, we're trying to cover it up, we're trying to hide the best we can that there's actually even really a problem. And something's got to change. And so as we continue on in scene one, there's a confrontation that's coming. And as a matter of fact, the captain went to him, and this is what the captain said. The shipmaster is what the original translation is. The shipmaster went to him and he said, how can you sleep? Like this is it. It's like this is Jonah's wake-up call. Like, how can you sleep, Jonah? You gotta open your eyes to what's really going on. Don't you know what's happening around you? Open your eyes. Like everybody else is jumped into action. They're trying to resolve the problem, and you're down here sleeping. How can you close your eyes to what's going on? He continues, he says, get up and call on your God. Everybody else is calling on their gods. At least do your part. Get up and call on your God. Maybe he'll take notice of us so that we will not perish. So they don't even really know it's Jonah's fault at this point. It's just like, you're not behaving still the way you ought to. And it's ironic that the prophet of God is the only one not calling out to his God. In The Princess Bride, he'd say, inconceivable. Like that's what this is. It's that genre. It's like, this is bizarre. This is absurd. And the shipmaster comes to him and he says, wake up, get up. What are you doing? And the reason is because this is the first step to a turnaround. When you've behaved your way into this downward spiral, turning things around begins by getting up and waking up. Then the sailors, they said to each other, come, let us cast lots to find out who's responsible for this calamity, which casting lots is sort of a primitive version of drawing straws. It's like, let's draw straws to try, we don't know who's responsible, so let's try to figure out, maybe the gods or maybe fate will show us who's responsible. And so they cast lots. And the lot fell on Jonah. So this was their indication, Jonah's at the center of this somehow. So they asked him, tell us who's responsible for making all this trouble for us? And isn't this what happens when you start to get an idea of where the problem may be in your team or in your business or your company or your family or whatever? You got questions. And they have questions. It's like, tell us who's responsible for this. What kind of work do you do? And where do you come from? And what is your country? And from what people are you? It's like, we don't know enough about you, obviously. There's something going on here and we need to know what's going on. And this is typically what goes on, right? We have lots of questions when things are not going well. And it's sort of, the reason is because we want somebody to own up to what's actually going on. And so Jonah, realizing he's caught, he answers and he says this. He says, I'm a Hebrew and I worship the Lord, Yahweh. Anytime you see the all capital Lord, this is their word for the Israelite God, Yahweh. The God of heaven who, look at this, he made the sea and the dry land. And this terrified them. And they asked, what have you done? This is the God of the land and sea, and you've defied him, and what have you done? They knew he was running from the Lord because he had already told them so. So it's like, to be clear, Jonah, real quick. Your God is the God of the land and the God of the sea. And you not only were dumb enough to tick him off, but you got in a boat? That's absurd. What are you doing? And by the way, you didn't just get in any boat, you got into our boat. What have you done? Bruh, you're killing us. How do we get out of this? And just then the sea was getting rougher and rougher. So they asked him, what should we do to make the sea calm down for us? We need some help. And Jonah's and this is so Shakespearean, I can't do it. I wish I could. I'm gonna just make a fool of myself for a second. But it's here's his response. Pick me up and throw me into the sea. He replied, and it will be calm. I know that it's my fault and that this great storm has come upon you. I will be the sacrificial lamb. And it's no, that's not what's happening here. Jonah is not being heroic. He's not being willing to sacrifice to save everybody else. Jonah's looking for a way out. Jonah's overwhelmed by what's going on. He doesn't want to face what's happening. So he says, just throw me overboard and that'll resolve everything. It's too much to take responsibility for. Jonah finds himself in an overwhelming place and he's like, I don't think this is gonna turn around and maybe I shouldn't go on. Now, I wanna pause for just a minute because if you're in this place today, you feel the weight of this. And I that's not lost on me. I just want you to know, if that's you, and you're likely carrying this burden alone, and maybe you're the only one who knows what's going on, and maybe it's a big mess, and maybe it's just started into that, and you don't know how to get off that track or get off that path or change courses. But I want you to look at me. If you just look at me for 1 second, I want you to know something. We prayed you'd be here today. We prayed you'd be watching and you'd be listening. I don't believe it's by any accident. I believe it's by the providence and the kindness of God that you're listening today. And if I could be so bold, I don't often try to speak on behalf of God because I'm not a prophet. My name is Joel. But here's the thing. I think God would say, hey, it's time. It's time for a turnaround. And I'm inviting you and I'm offering and I want to help you navigate this turnaround before the storm gets so vicious that it takes you. Or maybe somebody near you, or somebody around you, somebody you love, it takes you out or them out.
Forever all my days I will love you, God. Forever all my days I will love you, God. Forever all my days I will love you, God.
Welcome to Atlanta, Georgia. Sweetie,
Hindi pala matagal.
hindi naman ako nagsabi sabay tayo. Tuloy natin na.
Ano?
Wala, tahimik ka lang.
Tahimik lang. Akala
Okay.
ko naman para pang mabuhay.
Welcome to Atlanta, Georgia.
Makinig para matuto.
Mag-observe para ma-encourage.
One, two, three.
Yan ang mga galing sa kanilang galing kay Eric Fernandez.
Diba? Yan ang mga salitang galing kay
Eric Fernandez sa'yo.
I got this right.
Eric Fernandez.
love to listen. Anak. Okay, let's go.
Yan ang mga salitang galing kay Eric Fernandez!
Thank you po dun sa bigay niyo pong care package. Sana po mas marami po kayong matulungan na katulad namin na kapos po sa pangangailangan. Maraming po salamat. Lalo po sa Diyos at kay Pastor Eric.
Maraming salamat sa lahat ng nagpapasalamat. Ang lahat po ng aming malilikom sa inyong panonood ng aming FB pages at YouTube channels ay aming ibabahagi sa lahat ng humingi ng tulong sa pamamagitan ng Dapat Bayan. Kaya po, i-like, i-share at mag-subscribe na sa aming mga FB pages at YouTube channels. Sa lahat din po ng gustong ulitin na panoorin ang mga previous videos, lumipat na po kayo at mag-subscribe din sa aming YouTube channel na inyong matatagpuan sa link sa ibaba. Kaya po, see you in our next video.